Hello, everyone. Good morning. Just need to style my mustache. Need to brush it. No, kidding. Good morning. A little tired, but I'm gonna try to knock this drawing out. Actually, I might move this a little bit so you can see a little bit better. But yeah, it's just one of those days where I thought I was going to get this done yesterday. I actually planned out like 2 hours. And then after like 1 hour session, I was just like, I'm tired. I'm just tired. So I decided that I'm going to cut it short for the day and just try to continue it on today. Normally I'd be painting in the morning, but as I get more engrossed or into painting, drawing these skulls, it's been taking longer and longer. And I've been making them a little bit more dynamic, positioning them differently so they're a little bit more difficult to do. And because they're in a different position, as opposed to kind of being like eye level, I have to spend more time looking and I go a little slower. So that's why it's they're taking longer than normal. And I'm getting a little bit more adept on how I want to apply the charcoal. And so because I'm doing more detailed work in these drawings, they're taking longer. So I'm going to try to share this to some groups here. How you doing today? Are you doing good? Share you. Share the right there. Share. By the way, feel free to share this. That you would be helping me out a lot by sharing this to wherever you want to share it to. Yeah, so I'm just sharing these, sharing my drawing or sharing this video, and which is why I'm looking kind of funny at the moment. Art promotion. I'm just sharing this, so give me a moment, and then I'll get to drawing pretty soon. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask, and I'll try to answer when I'm drawing. I would also ask of you to share this, right? Put it on, just like and share it on your feed. That'd be the best thing you can do, is to like and share. You can comment. Actually, the comments are just going to be like a dialogue. Wow, I have a lot of groups I'm sharing this to. I started it. No, I'm just going to share them to all, right? All right, that's it. I'm done sharing. So before I start, I like to have a sip of coffee to kind of like ease my nerves and have like the calm before the storm, And if you're wondering why the lighting is so dim, it's because I want light here, but I can't have it, unfortunately. If I turn the light up here, I have some lights hanging up here. If I turn these lights on and put them on the surface here, for one, you might not see the drawing, but also it's going to change the value on my skull here. So before I start drawing, what I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to use... So I like to do this always. I like to have a cup of coffee, and then I like to do a little bit of warming up with my charcoal pencil, vine charcoal. And so all I'm doing is I'm going to take my just my charcoal pencil, and I'm just getting used to applying pressure to the surface. Right? So this counts as two things. It brings the drawing closer to the end, meaning it pushes it forward, but also it gets me accustomed to the drawing. So I'm just kind of getting used to the movements. I don't like how hard that is, so I need to use a different one. So it gets me used to the movements, and another reason why I do this in the morning, specifically in the morning, is I've typically already worked out, and so like my motor skills are kind of compromised. They're primed to push or pull heavy weight, and so I find that after exercising I tend to be a little heavy-handed. So by doing this, I get myself acclimated to the drawing, but I also kind of trigger my muscle response to have a softer touch. So that's why I do that. Although I can't seem to find my, I have a bunch of charcoal. Yeah, this will be good. So now I'm gonna try to apply that to the background here. And just slowly knock back the tone. So it's a little darker, but not too dark. One benefit to drawing live is that it's forcing me to not take a break. And what I mean by that is like, let's see here. What I mean by that is typically when I draw, I kind of apply, I move, I do a little bit of drawing, and then I look at the drawing, and then I do a little bit of drawing, then I look at the drawing, and I do a little bit of drawing, and I go back and forth. So I think live drawing particularly, not so much painting, live drawing particularly, since it's so almost immediate, right? It's immediate. I am forced to act a little bit quicker and make more executive decisions with my drawing when I'm doing a live drawing, as opposed to doing it by myself and doing it in my own personal setting where I'm just kind of working, at my own pace. My legs are like rubber, they're like jello right now. You ever do squats and you're like, after you do squats, you're finding yourself kind of swaying to stand, you're like, you just can't seem to make a stand up straight. That's what I feel like right now. So I can't seem to stand straight. So I'm not looking at the skull at the moment. I'm just focusing on getting the motion in. I'm getting the motion in with my skull. And just trying to knock back the background so that there's tension, and there's a tension between the foreground and the background. So typically that's what I try to do. I try to teach that as well. So when I'm teaching, I try to tell everyone that you usually want to have your foreground be the most prominent area of the composition. And if that's the case, you're going to want to have the highlights and the very high contrast elements in the foreground. You don't want the high contrast elements in the background. And since you don't want since you don't want that in the background, one of the things you want to consider is knocking back the background a darker tone. It can be very subtle, but like just make it a darker tone than the elements of the foreground, because that'll allow you to express your highlights more on your main object. And if people are struggling with adding that contrast, just knocking back your background will do wonders. It's a very simple technique. And usually, though, when you start doing still life drawings, when you're first beginning, many of us don't account for the background. You know, we usually just leave it open and don't really do anything with the background. What's funny though is like when I'm teaching, I find myself just recycling the same old tricks out of my bag. You know, I just like, it needs to be darker. This needs to be lighter. Add a tone in the background. It's just the same thing usually. It's nothing like, there's usually never something that's situational that I need to address with each person's drawing. I usually express the same thing because usually they're dealing with some of the same issues with regards to drawing. So now I'm going to graduate to using a charcoal, it's like a stick. And I'm going to use that in the background, and so that can further knock back the tones. So I kind of started it right here, but I'm going to continue it. Again, I'm not going to look at the skull at the moment. I'm just going to try to maintain a consistent dark tone. And then when I go back to the skull and work on it, I'll make the adjusted tones that I need. But right now it's not necessary. I'm not gonna lie, I really think I need to sit down. I'm like, my legs are, I'm like, half my thoughts are going towards just being able to stand up because I can feel them kind of shaking. And I'm having to lock my legs a little bit because they're like, because I didn't do a lot of weight, but I did a lot of reps. So it's just it's a new thing. And typically I exercise on an empty stomach, so I'm sure that has an effect. I'm not sure it divots like that, but I'll leave it like that. This paper is kind of getting a little lumpy. I'm adjusting the curve. I didn't like how I divoted it, made it into a little divot. So now I'm going to work on some lines a little bit. Okay, now let's go back to the tone in the background. So I'm doing this right now because I'm Well, I'm a little tentative. I'm a little wary of drawing on the skull at the moment. I'm not. I'm not at a like 100% at the moment. I'm functioning like I'm kind of lightheaded. I'm hungry a little bit, maybe a little bit dehydrated, a little tired. My legs are feeling kind of sore. All kinds of things are kind of coming to play with this drawing. You know, I'm not fully awake. And I know that it's going to affect me. So I'm trying to avoid the areas that need to be worked on at the moment and just do areas that I can kind of do without actually having to process information at the moment. I know that seems weird, but it makes sense to me. Normally, I'm not too quick to jump the gun on the contour line of the skull because I haven't really spent a lot of time looking at this. But I don't want to keep looking. I don't want to second guess myself. So right now, I'm just going to kind of quasi outline it as I just did, and then I'll move forward from there. Wow, I'm just incredibly tired today. That's what I am. I'm really fatigued. I can feel it. You ever have one of those days you wake up, you're like, oh wow, I'm feeling beat up already, and it's not even noon. Perhaps I didn't sleep enough. Perhaps I didn't have enough coffee. Perhaps it's other things. It could be a litany of things. I think that's the word, litany, a list of things. The way this is going though is I don't think I'm going to finish this at this session. I think we'll have to continue it another time. So it's looking like these skulls might what went from like I could draw a skull at one skull at night went from I can draw a skull every 2 nights or one skull a week, because now they're getting more and more technical, which I don't mind for this type of drawing, because you know, as you kind of understand by now, is like I've been doing a lot of abstract work, so the abstract work is kind of like just formulaic. It's like paint by numbers almost, and this forces me to think a little bit more. Oh, wow. This is... how are you doing today? How are you doing? I'm going to have a cup of coffee. I'm going to drink some coffee for a second. I'm going to drink some coffee as soon as I'm going to have a cup of coffee. Actually, I'm going to wrap this around my waist so I can wipe my hands off instead of wiping it down my pants. I don't want to wipe charcoal on my pants. I have a habit already doing that anyways, but I don't want to do that today. But I tell you, whew, my legs, they're so jiggly. And here I am right after doing some squats. I'm going to draw and then I'm like standing. It's like, oh my gosh, man. Give me a break, bro. Okay, back to it. You know, I do wish I could listen to music while I'm doing this. So, what you've kind of surmised by now is that drawing can be very tedious and slow, especially if you're trying to build up what I like to call like charcoal layers. And I also like to use the grain of the paper a little bit. You know, paper has a little bit of tooth. You might as well use that tooth to your advantage. You know, you might as well use that tooth to your advantage. And let some of the charcoal take some of the tooth with it, you know? Show some of that tooth, that grit, that texture in the paper. What I like hearing when I do this is the swooshing noise of the charcoal. It's so soothing. I don't know about you, but I think it's very soothing. I don't think you can hear it though, but I can hear it. Oh, hey. Yeah. I don't know how long I'm going to be here. I think I'm going to do it for like until about 8. I got to keep an eye on the clock though. But I don't have a clock, so there we go. So as you can see, it's just a very slow process. Because I want to have a little bit control of my value range. This is one thing that I've never really been quite good at was doing very good tone drawings. And so what I'm doing is kind of attacking that head on in some of these drawings. Is I'm trying to work with that handicap that I have. So I have a handicap of not doing a lot of transitional tones. I never really have I never tend to do I never model the forms as much as I like. And so I'm trying to force myself to model those forms. And I'm getting towards the end of this area, which means I got to go do the hard part. I don't wanna. But first, before I tackle the hard part, I'm going to have a little bit of coffee and then stare at it for a second and ponder. Sometimes when you're drawing, you want to think about what you're doing. You know, think about what's lacking, what's not lacking, what your overall strategy is. You know, I mean, I fell victim to this as well. It's like one of the things that when we're first starting out, I always use this when we're first starting out because listen, I have probably made more mistakes as an artist than the average artist because you just don't see it because you haven't seen all the stacks of paper. I made a lot of really bad work. So because of that, I also have an idea of what mistakes tend to occur when you start off. And I know one mistake is a lot of us don't think about the end result. Or a lot of us underestimate how long it's going to take to do a drawing. Or they want to do it fast, and so they try to just expedite the process and just like apply tone and charcoal on there. And all of a sudden they're like, I can't. This is a mess. I can't fix this. I'm like, I told you. It's like you went too fast. So I don't know. I'm going to work on the left eye, but my right. And I've been playing around with contour lines a lot, so I'm going to try to bring that in here. So I've been playing around with using contour lines and what else? Oh, a mixture between thick and bold contour lines, so it's kind of like illustrated cartoonish, and then a very not super well defined, but I think a more thorough establishment of charcoal pencil tones. And this is actually rather new to me. I never really played with charcoal blocks before, so this is really new. Playing with charcoal blocks. By the way, for those that are watching, please comment and or share and or like. Make the hearts pop up on the side. Do they have hearts pop up on the side? Or is that just Instagram? I don't know. That's the best thing that you can do. Like, you don't have to do anything else. Just share it. You know, share it to your page. That would be so awesome. So one of the things that I typically do is I tend to do a contour line to kind of block out the where I see a tone shift, and I find that to be a strategy that I find works for me. So I'm kind of hitting two birds with one stone. I'm playing around with the contour lines, but I'm also I'm able to start seeing where I need to kind of develop my tone shifts or where I need to apply tone. So if you notice how I'm drawing, I'm not drawing like it's a pencil and I have my hand on the paper. I'm actually drawing away. So that's a skill that you learn through time. I find it a good skill to have, and you're going to find that a lot of fine artists tend to do that because what it does is it avoids you from, it mitigates you from kind of smearing the pigment or smearing your drawing. And it's at first when you're doing it, it sucks because you lack all the motor skills. Like you're like, I can't, I need my hand to be resting on something to get the right, to be able to manipulate the tones that I want to manipulate. But after a while, you get accustomed to it. Not bad. So this was going to take me a while to do simply because I have this is a new position for me, and normally I don't see the bottom half of the skull, so I have this little transparent little, I think it's from I don't know what it is. It's a clear plastic thing from a package that I use to kind of tilt it upward. And I did that because I wanted to be able to kind of see what it looks like behind, and that's the closest thing I could do to kind of like create the illusion of being able to see depth. Because before I had like a block in front of it, and I had to make up what it kind of looked like. And now I can kind of have an idea of what it looks like transparent, or like what it would look like if I could have it tilted up like this without having anything obstruct my view. I know that I'm not talking anymore, and partially because now that I'm not working on the background where it's all the action is kind of automatic, now that I'm working on the area that needs to be developed and actually takes some thought and observation. It's I hate to say it, but drawing is a thinking activity, and right now my mental resources are spent towards kind of observing the forms a little bit. I'm trying to focus on that. And really think about what these forms look like, and think about whether or not, am I getting a likeness? So my goal is a likeness. It's not to capture the exact, right? Obviously, I'm not going to get exact, but my goal is to capture a likeness. And in order for me to capture a likeness, I got to look at these forms, and I got to think about, what do these shapes look like? Are they curvy? How dark it is? How dark is that cast shadow? How dark are these forms? And I'm thinking. The skull's dark, but the background behind the side of this skull needs to be darker. And that way I can manipulate the tone on the forehead of the skull a little bit more. So I got to tone this area a little bit darker, so I have a little bit more maneuverability. All right, so that helped a little bit. So I think what I'm gonna do is now I'm gonna mess around with this charcoal stick some more, and keep pushing this shadow here a little bit more. So I like to go, when I do charcoal drawings, I like to go a little, I like to apply a little bit of pressure each time. I like to go over it in like sweeps and like layers. And the reason why is because I believe it helps me with like, with value control. Because I know from experience that if you can end up going overboard too quickly. And you don't want to do that because you really can't backpedal it. Like you can erase it a little bit. Charcoal's a little bit more forgiving, but you can erase it a little bit. But if you do, sometimes if your eraser is kind of gunky or dirty, or the paper might be a little bit damp, or it might be humid in the area that you're working in, it can smudge the paper, and there's really little you can do about that. And you could it's like a tattoo, where a tattoo that you regret and you want to cover it up. All you can really do is kind of mask it. And so I try to go slow so I don't have that like tattoo regret, right? I don't have that value regret where I put too much tone too quickly, and now I'm having to mask that area. So I try to be mindful of that fact. I think a goal for me, if I can finish this drawing today, I'd be a happy camper. That'd be nice. That would be a really nice thing to happen. I was gonna paint, but my easel's right there, and I decided not to because I didn't want to move this easel and risk changing the position that I was drawing my skull. So I'm kind of like anchored at this drawing until I finish it. I'm gonna try something a little bit different. I got this charcoal pencil here, and I'm gonna start by applying some charcoal pencil on the skull. To kind of really dial in these forms. Yeah, I find myself right now, I'm kind of locking up. I can feel it. One thing I really need to touch this cheekbone here. I've been avoiding it Really, I've been really avoiding it. I just like, I don't want to touch it because it's it's an important area, and I'm worried that I'm going to mess it up, and I've been avoiding it, and I just need to go do it to it and then see what happens, because I need to not be so fearful over drawing. Like, what's the worst that can happen? Right? The worst that can happen is it's not going to be as good as I thought it would be. And then you just do another one, and then maybe the next one's going to be slightly better. You know? That is the worst. It's not going to spontaneously explode. You know, it's not going to like start like just become like, it's not going to spontaneously turn into flames. You know, it's not like flame. It's not like the Human Torch. Flame on, right? What's the worst that's going to happen? You mess it up. That's it. But guess what? Drawing is a series of messing up. So I gotta always kind of remind myself of that. That if you're not failing to some level on each drawing, then you're not really growing. You know? So I guess one of the things that that's happening when I do these skulls now is because I'm getting better, like I'm not necessarily getting better, but like I'm getting in a rhythm, right? I'm getting in a kind of a drawing rhythm. And yes, there is improvement that happens just by repetition, but I'm getting in a rhythm. And because I'm getting in a rhythm, the drawing expectations are kind of leveling up a little bit. And because of that, I'm spending more time on the drawings. And more time on a drawing is always typically is going to yield a better drawing. It's very rarely does like spending more time on a drawing going to make it worse. Unless your drawing is like scribbles and your goal is just to scribble. But very rarely does spending more time on your drawing make it worse. I never like been like, oh man, my drawing's getting worse and worse because I'm drawing more on it, and I just add more and more stuff. Of course, there's probably a limit to how much time. I don't know if I've met that, especially in today's world where photorealists are involved, where the detail is as unlimited as the cameras that are taking the photo. So I'm still avoiding this area though. Okay, I'm going to play it around with the charcoal pencil and see how that works. I noticed I pressed a little too hard too quickly. So that's fine. I can still kind of play around with that. Hey, do you like skulls? Well, you're in luck. Skull. You're in luck. So it's getting about that time. Let's see what time it is. How long I've been working. I'm gonna cut it in about a few seconds, but I gotta do a few things before I can start back up. I gotta jet for a brief moment. Let's do a few more lines here. So I'm probably going to continue this later. Actually, I'm not. I'm not going to. I'm not lying. I am going to continue it later. I almost sounded like I'm not going to continue it, but I'm going to continue this later. But right now, I gotta get going. I got a few chores I got to run, and then I'll come back to it. I want to thank everyone for watching me draw. You would be doing me a huge service and really helping me out by sharing this on your Facebook, or sharing it to friends and family and anyone that you think might like the drawings of skulls. I don't know. It could be anyone, really. Well, thank you for your time. I hope you have a wonderful day. I will be back sometime later today. Bye.